Welcome to the Coaching Circle. We're so glad to have you here with us today. This is the Coaching Circle. We're a group of coaches. We meet here every Sunday to have discussions. This is unscripted, and we hope you have a good time. We hope you learn. We certainly learn, and we're glad to have you here with us. Our topic today is setting boundaries with friends. And as we let that simmer and you think about it, we shall introduce ourselves. So I shall go first. I am Shiro. I run the podcast Lost in Our Footies, available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and on YouTube at Lost in Our Footies, and run the website shirondune.com. Who'll go next?
I'll go next. I'm Nikki, and I've got a YouTube channel, and it's all about the mindset.
And I can go next. Hey everyone, my name is Alex. I have a YouTube channel called Alex Antoinette, and I also have a website where people can book for coaching, and I have a blog on there too.
I'm Ruby. I'm a life coach, and I have a YouTube channel called The Elephant in the Room.
Great. Thank you all. Like, subscribe, tell a friend. This is the Coaching Circle. We are glad to have you here with us. So let's get to it. We are talking about boundaries, setting boundaries. The first time I heard about boundaries, I just think of these big walls and, this space that tries to keep everyone away, that kind of thing. Who wants to tell us a little, maybe a lighter version of what boundaries are?
I think boundaries are what we need to put as protection for our soul, so that our soul is comfortable. What happens if we don't do that and we let people, for example, not be reliable, be disrespectful, is not only do we get mad at them, but we get mostly mad at ourselves for not standing up for ourselves. And then the situation, I think I can safely say always comes back, because these other people, they're going to cross the boundary again and again and again. And usually it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until we finally wake up and learn the lesson we had to learn. So it's, how do we know we need to do it? We just need to listen to our soul. Like I had an example happening recently. A person I was good friends with, like deep and connected, was very unreliable. And so I realized, for me, depth and connection doesn't mean anything without reliability. That is my boundary. If people don't do what they say and say what they like, it doesn't work for me. It lets me confused, anxious. So that's a boundary for me. That's an example.
As for boundaries, thank you, Gooby, for sharing that, just because it's something that we all have to do, we may have people in our lives that we may need to either set boundaries with or cut them off, but boundaries, I look at it like we're empowering ourselves. It's a thing to where we respect ourselves and know when something's no longer serving like our energy. We put certain things up so nobody crosses that. And if somebody crosses that or is, kind of near crossing that, we can have that communication. Because if there's not that hard conversation or just that conversation in general, I do think it can kind of come off a little bit abrupt. But I think we need to identify what our deal breakers are when it comes to these boundaries. Like, let's say your friend is like name calling you. Like, that's not something like I would come back from. Like, no, you don't disrespect me like that, so I'm not gonna be your friend anymore. But let's say your friend is 45 minutes late to you for lunch, but they didn't call you or text you, they just showed up late, and they didn't say anything. put a boundary in place, said, hey, if you're going to be more than like a minute or two late, give me a heads up. And if this is consistent, then maybe I don't want to be your friend, because I like people who respect my time.
I see it also from the good girl perspective. So part of the reason that I thought that it was such a drastic thing to have boundaries was not really understanding that my own time, space, opinion, all those things, that they were actually valued and worth standing up for. And the end result of that is exactly what Gubi said, that then I'd have these relationships where things just go wrong. Because at some point, then I would blow up because things have been so consistently not going in the right direction. And yet, without voicing what it is that my expectations were, no one knew. I probably wasn't consciously aware of it, just feeling irritated when something happens. And they were certainly not aware of it because I hadn't told them. So it creates this uncomfortable vibe, more so for you, more so for me, because then I am the one who's feeling that things are out of sorts. And then if there is an explosion and I push this person out of my life, then they might be left wondering what happened. It seems a little unfair to them as well. So even though it might sound difficult to have the initial conversation where you're saying that for me, this is important, it's important to have that conversation and to also understand that everyone is different. What is important for you might not be important for someone else. Everyone has their own different world perspective and how they see what you consider very important. You can only drink from a black cup. If cups are not black, then you shouldn't drink from it. And then you go somewhere and they give you a white cup and you're out of sorts thinking you can't possibly drink. That's really the same thing with all the little things that we personally consider important. So setting it out and stating it out there is valuable for the friendship, valuable for them, valuable for you.
I think as well it's about like the self-worth thing, isn't it? Like feeling worthy to have like your boundaries and things that you will and won't do and things that you will and won't accept.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add
Oh, go ahead, Gubi.
to what you were saying with the explosion. I used to be that person. My dad used to be that person. So I think it's if we just cannot, we either take too much on or we just consistently don't voice. And then it gets a big explosion. Sometimes it's throwing things. So to avoid that, so I went a little bit deeper into digging why I wasn't doing it. So it was especially with that one friend and also in my last romantic relationship. There were 1,000 red flags, so many boundary breaks. And I started to resent him. I didn't like myself. Why did I keep doing that? It's because of fear. In my case, it was because of fear of being by myself, of fear of not having anyone, fear of not being able with my ex. We lived in Mexico at that time. Now I live here by myself. At that time, I couldn't imagine living there by myself. So for all the wrong reasons, mostly fear, I stayed in that. I didn't push my boundary. I didn't set my foot down when my soul was not okay with it. So that was an important thing to know. And now I understand the concept of it's not I wait for my new awesome friends and then I let the bad ones go. It doesn't work that way. You let them go, you level up, and then you attract better people.
And then it's about like getting your values right, isn't it? Do you value being liked by everybody more than you value being true to yourself? If you can put a value in place of the top value I have is I have to be true to myself, and in that way I can be authentic to other people, then it's much easier to assert your boundaries than to be, oh well, my value is I have to be liked by everybody. Or at least that's what it was for me anyway when I was doing the boundaries.
Yeah, and if you put your boundaries up or you communicate your boundaries to somebody and they don't respond well or they don't want to be your friend anymore, good riddance, right? We were talking about earlier. Because the end of the day, you want somebody that you can talk to about things if they upset you. Or I do think that like people who love, support, and respect us and appreciate us wouldn't actively want to cross our boundaries. So I think the people that we have in our lives that are like the best people ever, like they're not going to want to do that. And the ones that we have those hard conversations with and they get upset about it, I'm like, okay, they probably either lack boundaries themselves, but I'm not going to be here to like put up with that.
Yeah, I can only underline that not being not being scared to come forward with the boundaries. Like as you said, good riddance. It's better, especially maybe in a dating situation, but also with new people we meet. It's better they learn straight away how we roll, how this is gonna be, and if they don't like it, it's not a match. Then, as I thought before, oh, don't be so extreme, don't get soft. No, no, no. Then it's good riddance, and again, you make room for the people who actually like respecting, who are like that as well, who have strong boundaries as well, who are very straightforward to talk about what matters. So then you attract exactly those people.
And I want to re-emphasize something you mentioned before about fear. Gubi, you mentioned fear. I'm just reading What Happened to You, a book by Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Perry. And it's about trauma, and they talk about past situations influencing how we show up today. And I do believe that for like a lot of good girls, there is a lot of that. It started somewhere. Being a good girl started somewhere, and it could have been that in growing up, you were discouraged from speaking up, and then that could be the reason why setting boundaries becomes such an unheard of task. It's someone might be listening to this and hearing this for the first time, that there is the option of setting boundaries. So then tempering that with a fear. So it takes a bit of self-work, some work on ourselves to look back on what 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 messaging we got when we were young, what beliefs have come across in us to make us feel that whether it is around self-worth, whether it is about speaking up, whether it is around any of these things that make you feel that you shouldn't speak, and then try to work around those, because you do have a voice. Learning that you are allowed to have a voice, learning that you can. And how you do this is like this, through listening to us here, through courses, through content, through books. There's material outside there that can give you the actual everyday tools that you would need to understand how to face it.
Yeah, I want to add to that the opinion thing. Absolutely. When I grew up, when I didn't have the same opinion as my family, I was, it was said, oh, you go against us. You always have to do the opposite on purpose. That was how I was seen. So, yeah, in that context, I see now, then sometimes you're too scared to, and almost taught to be the good girl, even if you had to lie a little bit to fit in. So I have a completely different, I have my real personality now, and not this made human being created by other people and put in a very tight box that I was when I was growing up. And I think a lot of people are in that situation.
Yeah, I think it happens to a lot of us. Like mine was similar. I would try and set boundaries numerous times, and they were always broken by like different family members or friends or even like teachers at school. And then as I grew older and I tried to set boundaries again, it was always like the reaction I got was really bad. But I think it's because I was in that place of like really low self-worth, and I didn't believe that I was worthy of setting those boundaries. So then I attracted the people that just treated me not very well. And then it was like a vicious circle then. Every time I tried to set boundaries, I was like shown that it wasn't right for me to set boundaries. And it's only now recently in my 40s that I've realised that, okay, I need to set boundaries. I need to be my authentic self and really show up as who I am and show people what's right and what's wrong, you know, what I'll accept and what I won't accept. And only then can I have like real friendships and find like a real relationship and real love. It's hard, isn't it? And I think just try and have compassion on yourself as well. If you've got to like 40 or 50 or 60 even, and you still struggle with this, I think most of us here, we've really struggled with it too. So.
Absolutely, I can fully relate. Yeah. So if we've reached the point of we figured it out, we've set our boundaries and found that we need to let someone go, that doesn't feel too nice. How do we manage that? Because there are questions. There'll be the questions that will come along of, am I doing the right thing? Is it me? Is it, and we have like, I have my inner critic who'd be sitting right up there, sitting on my shoulder, telling me, "But why did you do that? So many things going on in my head. How do you deal with it? How do you manage the decision of letting someone go?
I think if it gives you, obviously it's not gonna be fun. But at the end of the day, if you feel like this relief, like you don't have to put up with somebody crossing your boundaries and disrespecting you and showing up inconsistently, if you feel like they're causing more chaos in your life than they are benefiting you, then you should let them go. And I think sometimes we may be used to the chaos that when we don't have it, we're like, whoa, my life's too peaceful. What's happening here? You know? So I think it's like looking back at saying, is this worth my mental health? Is this worth my peace? And if it's costing me my peace, I gotta let it go.
Yes, for me that was similar. It was, well, I said for 3 months, zero contact. So it's still not complete. But I felt mostly immense relief. That's how I knew I did the right thing. Immense relief. There was some grief. There was anger that I didn't do that earlier. But it was mostly relief. And it's something I should have done a lot earlier. So I think, like it's good to meditate on it. You can think about it a couple of days, but somehow deep down, you usually know.
I love that you said that. Deep down, you usually do know. That is very true.
I think for me as well, I had to really tell myself that it's okay to be on my own. Like, it doesn't matter if I don't have any friends. I'm a full and complete person on my own, and the right people will come into my life. As long as I'm being true to myself, then if I am in a situation where I'm completely alone and I've been true to myself, then that's better than surrounding myself by people that are not aligned with me.
Mm. And on that, because there are 2 points that have come up from what you've said, but let's take this one first. Reaction. What of the reaction of the people who, was it you, Alex, who had the example of someone always coming in 45 minutes late? So if we go with that, and you've told them, so you've communicated, you've told them this doesn't work, this isn't me, da-di-da-di-da, then you tell them one day that, look, if you cannot keep this, then we shall no longer be friends. Then they blow up.
Okay. Sorry.
Carry on.
I'm
What
like,
happens next?
that's on them. Like they can get upset. Totally fine. I'm not here to manage other people's feelings. At the end of the day, as long as I'm comfortable within my decision, that's fine. I feel like my safety and my mental health and my peace comes before anything else, and they have every right to be upset. Totally. But that's not going to change my mind. I have to stay firm in my decisions and not be swayed by their negative reaction and been like, oh no, it's okay, like we can be friends again. And no, like that doesn't work like that. I'm not here to manage their emotions. They had to do that on their own.
Yeah, we're not responsible for other people's feelings. We're not responsible for other people's triggers. That is their stuff too. When I told that to my friend, he was talking, and I just, at one moment, I just said, okay, I'm going to go there now and in another room and do that and that. Like, that's how I realized I was already completely done with it. It doesn't need to be a long conversation.
It is about them, isn't it? It's 9 times out of 10, when somebody's reacting to something that you've done, it is more about them and what's going on for them than it is about you and what you've just said.
Yes.
If you can keep that in mind, that's really helpful.
Absolutely. And just to it's really just the same point, but again, it's that everyone has their own, everyone might be the main character in the movie of their own lives. So in their movie, they're thinking something happened. Maybe whatever the conversation you're having is tied to some past event in their own lives. So they have moved back in time to that thing that happened and are no longer there with you in this conversation about time management. So trying to soothe their feelings is really not something you can do, because their reaction has nothing to do with you. So moving yourself out of the space of needing to do that, then I like, it's, if you're at peace, then you're fine. It's really not on you. I like that. Yeah. Good. What about your own reaction? What if, so we've talked about being at peace, but what if your view of it then becomes that this person is bad? Can that happen? That this person, there's something wrong with this person who's always late. You then have another whole conversation in the head about this person. Go on.
Well, yes and no. I think that it makes me get clearer on what type of people that I want around me and like the quality and the character. So it makes me want to raise my standards and not put up with that disrespect for, that more than that once or twice, more than that one session, because usually it's a pattern with people and people eventually reveal themselves. And I'm really big on consistency and reliability and like honesty and just communication. So if they lack things in those departments, we're probably not going to be a good match. But it took me getting clear on what it is that I'm looking for in friendships and relationships, becoming that, and then setting that standard for them too. And if they can't rise to that, then I got to let it go, because there's other people out there that can meet me at that level. So they're not bad, but they're just not a match for me. Do better. Sorry. Do better. Do better to be in our circle. That's how I say it, So I'm not gonna stoop my standards low to hang out with these people. They gotta rise up to meet me where I'm at.
Sometimes we wish so much that a certain person would get something, but again, it's being honest with ourselves. They're just not capable sometimes of things.
Yeah.
Of reliable, of meeting our standards. When we know they're not capable, even though we wish they were, let it go. They're not gonna get capable because we want it so bad. No. Mm-hmm. That's a big one for me.
That's a misplacement of our time and our attention and our focus that could be placed on better quality people, better quality friends. So it's like, do I want to spend my time trying to change this person, or could I just be around people who are already of this caliber and surround myself with them?
I think it is important as well to think about that everyone is doing the best they can with what they know and where they're at, kind of thing, even though it's hard when someone's really hurt you as well, like when it's really painful. But I think for me, I've been guilty of like judging people in the past and painting them as a bad person, but really they're not a bad person, they're just not aligned with me. And I think for me as well, if I've judged other people, it affects my own, like we call it like vibration or ability to be happy. So this is something I'm really working through with myself, is to not judge other people and not judge myself either.
And I like that the issue on having expectations on other people. It's really, if you're trying to change someone, that's an issue of control. You have your world vision, you want things to be a certain way, and you want this person to change to fit into your world vision, which is really not fair. Hence letting go. Let them live their lives. If they do decide that and you might not be right. Your world vision is your world vision. It's not everyone else's. So trying to change them to fit into the filter that you've created is controlling and unfair. Yeah.
And that's also comes, that's very typical for my family. It comes with guilt tripping. If you do that, it affects me. So it's a very bad place to be in, because if you let what other people do affect you that much and you wish you could control, but that's how I grew up. Yeah, so I had to completely let go of that. That's how my family is. They still try to guilt trip me into things sometimes, but I don't let them anymore. I catch it now, and then we actually all laugh about it, but that took some time. Yeah. So it's a very important one, not letting other people guilt trip you into things. Oh, it makes them so happy. No, you do it because you want to do it. You can do it to make them happy, but not because you feel you have to, but because you want to. Or the other side, again, the wishing, letting them feel like it makes you unhappy if they do it. Like, that's the same. Don't guilt trip other people into something. If they can't do it, if they don't want to do it, leave. Let them go. That's been a big one in my life.
I can really relate, and I wonder also if it ties to a scarcity mentality, that there are only so many, you only have so many friends
Oh,
that you could possibly potentially have. So if you let this one go, then you won't get any other options. But surely the world is full of human beings.
it goes completely with scarcity, with not putting yourself out there, going enough out there, and yeah, scarcity in more areas than one. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So a small discussion around when you start creating boundaries. So now we know how to do it. We know that it's a good idea. We know that it works. My experience when I started delving with boundaries, and it also still is something I started in my 40s, was I found myself going to extremes. It was all or nothing. It was this new superpower that I had, that everything then became a boundary and everything had to be set. So then trying to relearn how to use it in real life was a bit of a challenge, in understanding that not everything is disrespectful and not everything has the same scale. That I can then manage and decide that in this, I want to go again to the example of time that you used, because that one I think is a little straightforward. In that, in my case, maybe 15 minutes buffer is quite okay. And if it is, then it is. And if I do allow the 15-minute buffer, then that is fine. If I do not allow the 30-minute buffer, you can have conversations around it. I mean, there are different ways, there are different things. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. What's your views on this?
I think, yeah, when I was a child, I was scared of everything and I had no boundaries. And then I did this switch. Boom. I was very aggressive. And then it was like, oh my God, this is hurting me. I have enough now. I'm not doing that anymore. And it's very, it is not healthy or balanced at all. So I think now I would say, in a relaxed tone, I'm very uncomfortable with this. For me, for example, 15 minutes late, that's already too much. I might have a 5-minute buffer. So I would just be like, look, I like hang out with you, but you're always 15 minutes late. I'm uncomfortable, makes me very uncomfortable because I don't feel my time is respected. I would tell them calmly. At least that's like, and if you constantly tell people calmly, then you also, when you're really good with your boundaries, I think you are more relaxed. You are less prone to explode. Things can always come in a very unexpected way. Never, I would never say never, but you're way less prone to explode. You're in a much better position. You're much more used to. If anything happens around me that makes me uncomfortable, I'm going to say I'm uncomfortable with this, and maybe even leave. I'm not in situations like that at the moment, but it becomes a way of living. And if we've been in the chaos, it goes with chaotic behavior, and then we do the inner work, we move into a more calmer way of living, that becomes more way of living. It can still happen, as I say, but it's usually less, because we catch it more early and then we work on it. If I would blow up now and scream at someone, I would be, oh, what is that? I would really, it would be a big thing. I would go deep and try to figure out why that would happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's about just as you go along, if something's made you uncomfortable, just stating it calmly, this is not good for me, or this is not, this is a boundary. But I think if the person continues to break that boundary, then you need to be looking then, does this person align with me and align with my life? And then also, how are they reacting when you're saying your truth? Are they like putting you down, or are they like, oh, I'm really sorry, I won't do that again? So
I think it's important to know that there are people who want to set boundaries, but they may feel scared to. And that's usually at like an unconscious, subconscious level. A lot of the time, it's like more so dealing with the nervous system. And I noticed that like kind of with me when I was younger, when I would want to tell somebody something that upset me, or even being like vulnerable with somebody or something like that. Anything that got me to feel like not safe, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. Because setting boundaries to me wasn't super safe at the time. So what I ended up doing is once I started feeling like safe in my own body through emotional self-regulation tools and just overall calming down my nervous system, I was then more confident and calm in setting these boundaries and more able to fulfill that and actually execute that rather than, oh, I'm going to, and then not say it or pull myself back. So I understand coming at it from me wanting to say something but feeling scared. And now like it's like the back of my hand. Like I can do that so easily. But it took me feeling safe in the discomfort of it all and calming down my nervous system to be able to confidently set those boundaries and know like, hey, this is something that shouldn't be crossed. Like I'm dead serious on that. And yeah, I feel like I've taken myself more seriously, other people take it more seriously, and it's not like I'm wishy-washy in my delivery.
It's a muscle to be built, like with exercise.
Mm-hmm.
I like to do things that scare me. Like for me, for example, the ice shower, it still scares me, but I do it anyhow. And then you get used to having the uncomfortable conversations. It's like, oh, no, not again. But then you know you have to do it. And it becomes easier. And not it's easy, but it's easier because we get used to it. And that's the person we are. We can't be one person in one aspect and one person in another. I love that saying, how we do one thing is how we do everything.
Right.
Once we're that person, that's just kind of what we need to do. And it's hard sometimes, especially if you know you're going to have the hard conversation with someone in a day, and then you have to still 24 hours to sit with it. It's not easy, but it's who we are now.
Yeah, and I think it's just when we do that, we end up pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone a little bit, and that's something worth celebrating. Like the old version of you could never, but this new version of yourself has standards, has boundaries, and communicates that, and is firm with their boundaries, not wishy-washy. They're going to be so proud of, you're going to be so proud that you ended up going through that because you are now you're now a better version of yourself, and now you have better quality people around you that don't even test those boundaries because they're just better people,
And also, I think it's about accepting that it probably isn't ever going to feel easy, is it, having a difficult conversation with somebody? There's always going to be a little bit of discomfort. So if you can just accept that it will feel a bit uncomfortable. And also, like, looking at, if you project your life to what is it going to be like if I don't have boundaries. Like, so for instance, in romantic relationships, you'd be with somebody that walks over you and you'd feel frustrated and not in a loving relationship, not seen, not like an authentic person, not an authentic relationship. But so you have to put those boundaries in place to have a good life and to have good relationships. So if you look at it like that, that gives you more. It's kind of like giving yourself a leverage, isn't it, to say that if I don't do it, then this is what it's going to be like.
And it also, with the practice, the inner critic's voice becomes more quiet, because the fear, the inner critic comes a bit from the fear. This fear that this will happen, this will happen. When you prove to yourself that you can do it, that you are worth communicating your boundaries for, that you are important to yourself, and that you can follow through, it builds like a trust. You trust yourself. Your inner child is happy. Your inner child is feeling protected because they can rely on you to be the voice when things are going wrong. And it also just creates time, because now you don't have to be worried. You don't need to be worried about all these little things that were otherwise in your line of vision, because now you know how to deal with things efficiently. Then you have time to do other things with your life. Yeah. Mm. How do you know if you are the one being reactive at the point of setting boundaries? How do you know if you're too much in the moment, if you're 0 to 100, you're on the brink of telling someone you never want to see them again because they switch the light on? I don't know. Or if there is no comparable, what has happened versus versus the step you want to take is too much. How do you figure that out?
You feel it in your body when you're feeling. Like the last time I got really upset, it was a week ago, and I was doing a Reiki course, and it said start at 12 in most places, and some places it said 12:30. So I was at 12, and I was like 12:30, nobody was there, or like 25, and I was like, I'm respectful of my time. Am I going to leave? And then the teacher just came, and I was like, I'm not comfortable with this. I might leave. And then she was nice, and then another guy came with 3 little dogs, and somehow I stayed, and it was great. But I was on the point, and it was also kind of a misunderstanding. She should have done the thing better, and I don't know. So I stayed, but I felt it coming, and I didn't like the uncomfortable position. I'm gonna have to leave now and ask for my money back. But in that scenario, it was good that I stayed, and but I could feel, I was in the where I don't like to go too much. Yeah. Or it can be, that's with other people. Then it can also be by myself. So I'm in Mexico. I'm Sailita, and I have night contact lenses. So I had to order. I'm staying longer. I had to order more products, and the Amazon Mexico is in Spanish. So it was a very stressful thing, ordering 3 different products in Spanish. So that's not very good. I could feel my body going to a state I don't like it to be in. I think I'm more conscious now that I go there. I didn't go to complete extremes, but I feel it in my body, and I don't like that feeling. Yeah, there's still something I'm working on, because usually when I'm in that very, not in a good way, overstimulated in a bad way feeling, it's very harmful. It's harmful to my stomach. It's harmful for my nervous system, and I didn't say anything rude in that Reiki scenario. I was just like, this is not okay, blah blah blah. But I don't want to say things I don't mean, or harm my body, or things become more difficult for me because I'm not in a good state. That's the most biggest one. If I need to find a solution, I might not see what's in front of me because I'm in this bad state.
I used to be similar. Well, I used to react because I used to be in quite a bad state, in like a survival mode. So I did used to be somebody that would be a bit paranoid or react or take things the wrong way. But what I found really helped me was just to not react there and then, but maybe take a few minutes or even like sleep on it and just kind of distance myself from the situation and almost be like an outsider looking in and say, like, is this okay, or could it be that I've taken it the wrong way? And really just look at it in a better state rather than when you're in that high emotional state. If like, because I used to get quite angry and quite bad tempered. This was quite a while ago now. I used to get quite bad tempered. So if I was in that state, I needed to come out of that and really look at it from like a kind of more of a logical point of view, say.
I also look at it like, what would the reasonable person do? So, for example, like you didn't hear from somebody for like days when you were expecting to hear from them. That's kind of like unusual. It's odd behavior. So what would the reasonable person do? Like, what would the normal person do? They'd be upset. Yeah, they'd be like, okay, this is abnormal. But for example, like let's say if you send a text and somebody didn't text you back in 5 minutes and you want to be like, okay, I'm gonna block this person. Like, would the average person do that? Probably not. And if we're still not super clear on like what that looks like, I think it's important to also have somebody in your life that you trust that has good boundaries so you can have them to talk to. Then like, hey, I'm dealing with this specific thing. Um, just kind of wanted to get your take on it. I'm feeling like this. And so just to kind of, if it's someone you respect and you trust, I wouldn't necessarily say that to just anybody, but somebody that you look up towards and who actually implements good, strong boundaries in a respectful, kind way, then ask them. And if you don't, I also think in like investing in like a coach too that has done the inner work, that has set the boundaries, who can provide that perspective for you without telling you what to do, but also just shedding light on the situation, validating your experience, or um, also making you aware of maybe that was an extreme reaction.
I think it's important to be in a place where you're in a good state and you feel safe in your body, and so that you are calm, so that you know what your boundaries are, and then it's easier to set boundaries when you're in a good state.
And also to be aware of your triggers.
Mm.
Well, one of my triggers is hunger. So I wouldn't be having a deep, meaningful conversation with someone to set boundaries when I'm hungry, because I realize that I'm already slightly off. So I need to go back to where I know that have I have set myself up as good as well as possible to have a meaningful conversation. And there could be other triggers. You could be triggered even by the person. You could be triggered by other things. But if you're aware of the triggers, then you can you can watch it out. You can see when things are about to go in the wrong way. Step aside, let your system calm down. And the other place to also get guidance is from your own intuition, in trying to understand, is this thing that I'm doing okay? Am I too much? Am I too little? Your intuition, once you've calmed down, is also able to guide you. So getting out of your head into your body and just asking yourself, how do I actually feel about this? Because sometimes there might be no logic. Sometimes it could be some toxic kind of situation, some gaslighting, something that's gone off, and you can't really see it. You're not really sure, but then your body will know, your system will know, your intuition will be able to guide you. So that's also something to trust.
I'm glad you said the intuition thing because a lot of people feel like something doesn't feel right, and then they talk their way out of it. They're like, no, it's my fault, or maybe I'm just being too sensitive or too critical. You are right. Your body will tell you. Like you get your knots in your stomach, you get, your body will start to kind of just like clench up. You know when something's not right. And so trust that. And I think once we start to, like you were mentioning, placing the focus back within our body and feeling calm and feeling safe, we can listen to that voice, that guidance that's saying, hey, like this isn't right. Put some boundaries in place, or maybe stay away from this person. They're not good for you.
Mm-hmm. So what happens if you have to get rid of all your friends? If you're in such a situation that absolutely you find that everyone who surrounded you not is not as per the standard that you set for yourself now, your new standard, you've changed. They used to be okay, you used to be okay with it, but you've done some inner work, you've been doing some work on yourself, your self-worth has come up. Suddenly you feel that there's everyone around you doesn't step up to the bar. What then?
Take the leap, cut them out, and surround yourself with people who are of that caliber. If you're not able to do that with people physically, like look up some inner work coaches on YouTube, hence us. But either other ones too, or join a course. Usually those people, they'll have like forums or like Facebook groups where you're able to link up with other people of that same wavelength. So it's like putting yourself in the spaces where you know that you should be in, and taking that step, because you can meet somebody, or many of your friends online and virtually from all over the world. We think we get so honed in on the scarcity, like, oh, if I let these people go from my life, like I'll never find any good friends again. It's like, well, how would your ideal friends be? Do you want them to be doing the inner work? Do you want them to actively work on themselves? Is that a priority for you? Is that something important for you? And if so, maybe, do something to where they're also in those same spaces. Like I said, the inner work course, or online, and those communities, they're there. They're all around.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes it can be a little bit uncomfortable. Like for me, like we all met in an online course. Like for me, like getting active there for the first time, it was scary, but I did it anyhow, and I'm very happy about it. And also, it's very important to know if you're in a work journey. I think most people, there's gonna be times where you have to cut friends out or move them to an outer circle. New people are gonna come in. That's just part of it, and because you're changing a lot, upgrading, or also there are times when we need a lot of support. But sometimes it's a group, sometimes it's a coach or both, and then there are also times where we're a little bit more in solitude. We do things by ourselves. We don't go out so much. We rely a lot on our intuition, and that's all part of the inner work journey. So it's good to know that. But definitely, again, it's connected with getting out of our comfort zone and finding new things. And it's available. It's out there.
Yeah, ultimately, it is okay if you have to cut quite a lot of people out, even though it might be a bit scary. Because normally you'll find you have like with me recently, I've had to cut. Well, I've not even cut them, but it's just happened that there's quite a few friends that have fallen away through different circumstances. But I have got like a couple of friends left, and I've got family members as well. So I'm not completely on my own, but at the same time, I don't have the active social life that I used to have. But I think for me, it's just telling myself that my value is that I need to be true to myself. And even if I don't have many friends at this point, then it's better to have like quality friends than to have like friends that are going to disrespect me. But I think saying to yourself that it is okay not to have any friends is quite helpful, or it's helpful for me anyway, just because I think a lot of the time, kind of like society expectations is, oh, to be like a successful person, have to be in a romantic relationship, I have to have lots of friends and blah, blah, blah. But no, you don't really. If you want to be true to yourself and be the authentic person that you want to be, a lot of the time, it is that you have to spend moments of your life where you're in solitude, or seasons of your life when you're in solitude, and that's okay. That's perfectly acceptable to do that.
Yeah, great. And just to add that if you do end up cutting off a huge chunk of the people in your life, then being intentional about having people around you, because it is important. We are social beings. So having people around you in whatever form is something important to follow up. So being intentional about it, then you avoid the other extreme of that, which becomes that you are completely alone. Then that leads to its own kind of issues. So be intentional, going out there, believing. So there are so many people on this planet. So believing that you can find friends, and not necessarily needing to have 100 people. The numbers are not as important as the quality of people you have around you.
Yeah.
And I think those were the points we mainly had for today. Are there any last thoughts, any parting shots?
I guess it just starts to feel safe within yourself and trusting yourself. And once you kind of reset yourself on a nervous system level too, like calming yourself down, those conversations aren't so big and scary because now you're sitting in the discomfort and now you're okay with it. And setting boundaries is more important than letting somebody walk all over you.
And if you've set boundaries and you get a bad reaction, then it's okay to be the villain. We've been talking about this before about being the conscious villain. So just saying to yourself, it's okay if I'm the villain. I'll take that, but I'll be true to myself.
It's okay not to be liked by everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Then great. That was our show for today. We're truly grateful for you, truly grateful for your watching, truly grateful for your company. We shall be back next week at the same time, and we look forward to having you there as well. So thank you all. Goodbye.